Larry was devastated. Devastated.
This is Christy Warwick.
When you have a case and you win and you get a conviction and you've done right by the person who lost their life, it doesn't bring them back, but it does give you some type of closure. There was no closure on this.
Christy Warwick was the dispatcher who received the 911 call when Shelley Watkins' body was discovered in the Trinity River. At the time, Christy was dating homicide investigator Larry Warwick. Larry spent nearly 1 year putting together evidence that seemed to link Shelley's death to her husband, Jerry Mack Watkins, only for the case to crumble when District Attorney E. Ray Andrews and his middlemen solicited a $300,000 bribe to sabotage the case against the defendant, Jerry Mack.
I felt like we had a good, strong case against him, and then to have the rug pulled out from under you.
That's Larry.
Oh, it was horrible. It was sickening.
Christy and Larry married on September 9th, 1994, less than a month after the murder trial was canceled and the indictment dismissed, and 1 year almost to the day after Shelley's death. One night, Christy drove Larry from their home in Athens to Corsicana, the town where Shelley had lived until she was murdered and thrown in the Trinity River.
That's something I will never forget as well.
They made their way to the cemetery where Shelley was buried.
We went in the evening time so there wouldn't be people there, and he set out at her grave. She has a bench there. I stayed in the car. I don't know what he discussed with her. That's between him and Shelley.
I apologized to her for letting her down, not bringing this to a successful closure for her and her kids. I've closed every case. Every homicide case I've ever been on, I've brought it to some kind of closure. And I couldn't with Shelley.
And again, it wasn't anything in his hands. You know, he was doing his job. And I believe he would have gotten a conviction because he worked really hard. He didn't fail her. The system failed her. But this is just one that haunted him. You know, he needed to get this done and get a conviction and get justice for Shelley. Just as y'all are trying to do. You know, everybody wants justice for Shelley.
My name is Carol Dawson.
And I'm Wes Ferguson. You're listening to The Unforgotten. Season 1, The Labor Day Ghost.
Chapter 7, Penny-Ante Thugs. Following his arrest, District Attorney E. Ray Andrews defiantly claimed that everything of which he stood accused was false. He said he didn't do none of it. He was tired of living under a microscope and spending his days riding around because he was too embarrassed to go into his office. 1.5 months later, E. Ray changed his tune.
He got with his lawyer. They cut the deal.
This is Jeff Millslagle, the retired FBI agent who brought down E. Ray.
And the only other strange thing that I recall about this case is when he pled like at 5 o'clock at night. And I've never had that happen before. It was kind of like, keep it on the down low, let's get him in and get him out.
Oh, so you're trying to avoid publicity?
I think the judge was, not us.
On September 29th, 1994, Andrews pleaded guilty to a violation of the Hobbs Act, a federal law that prohibits extortion affecting interstate commerce. The law is often used to prosecute charges of public corruption. In addition to the other malfeasance, for which E. Ray Andrews was finally being held accountable, he also stood accused of practicing leniency for sex, which meant, of course, promising to let certain female defendants off easy if they would trade the use of their bodies for his gratification. Several women had already come forward with this complaint, according to an article in the Athens Daily Review, although he was never prosecuted. For his Hobbs Act violation, The court sentenced Andrews to 3.5 years in federal prison.
He got 42 months. He went to Florida, as I recall. And I talked to him once in Florida. He got a cell phone and called just to talk. It's E-Ray. Years later, he called me and he said, I'm getting out, and he stopped by the office to say hello.
Why would he do that?
Some white-collar criminals do it. I don't know why. As for the two middlemen who helped with E-Ray's bribery scheme, Scoob Wagner's sentence was 18 months in prison, plus a 2-year supervised release. Thanks to a deal in which he gave his full cooperation with the Texas Rangers and the FBI, the other middleman, John Ward, at first escaped indictment, but was later sentenced to 12 months and 1 day in prison. But Jeff was in for one more surprise with E-Ray.
Of course, we referred it to the state bar, thinking he would lose his license forever. We were wrong. As soon as he completed his sentence and completed his supervised release, he could apply to get his license back to make money again. And my biggest shock was he got his law license back. And the next thing I know, he's back in town defending defendants.
We encountered E-Ray Andrews a second time ourselves. We traveled once again to the nursing home where E-Ray Andrews is living now, to ask him directly about his involvement in the Watkins case and his participation in the bribery scheme that ended its prosecution.
What's your response to some of the allegations with Scoob and Ward?
With Scoob Wagner and John Ward?
Yeah.
Well, both of them little outlaws.
They're both little outlaws?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What did you want to do with that money from Watkins, from Jerry Watkins?
What did I want to do with it?
Yes, sir.
Spend it. No. I had no intentions of ever receiving any money from Jerry Watkins.
So when Scoob came to you and made that proposition, did you say, oh, sure, I'll think about that, or?
No, I didn't say it that way. It was I hadn't got time to talk to you right now. I just put him off to see what I could find out, what he really wanted. No, I never gave him any inkling that I would do it. Oh, Lord.
I never gave them any inkling that I would do it.
Did you think that they were trying to set you up?
My Lord, yeah.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. Sure I did.
We've heard that law enforcement might have been coming after you because you had the criminal defense background. You weren't one of them. I was wondering if you felt that you were not guilty of that when that happened.
Well, I know I wasn't guilty.
Do you think the Watkins were behind that?
Well, sure. That old man could buy anything he wanted.
And so you think he was buying Scoob Wagner?
Well, he could get him real cheap. Yeah. He's a little Penny-Ante Thug.
If you didn't quite follow, E-Ray is calling Scoob Wagner a Penny-Ante Thug. He says Jerry Mack Watkins' father, Carmack, could get Scoob real cheap. Scoob Wagner has declined to comment. We know E-Ray was running amok as district attorney, so it's unsurprising that he would try to blame his middlemen for the crime that got him forced from office. After E-Ray Andrews resigned from office, his former assistant, Mike Head, stepped in and served as the acting district attorney. The next election to determine E-Ray's permanent replacement was coming up in just 3 months. Mike threw his hat in the ring. So did Mike's fellow assistant district attorney, Donna Little Bennett.
Donna and I wound up running against each other that fall because obviously E-Ray resigned.
Mike says the looming election factored into his and Donna's willingness to dismiss the murder indictment against Jerry Mack Watkins.
And I'm trying to think if it ever even came up. If it did, I think both Donna and I probably said that we would revisit that first of the year, depending on uh, who was elected. As I recall, Donna very quickly after that, she resigned from the DA's office and campaigned full time for the 3 months or so until the election. We were very short staffed at that point, and one of the primary factors, in deciding to go ahead and dismiss it for both Donna and I was that the bribe would become a major issue in the trial. And we knew that there were discussions about, well, we'll just wait until the election's over. I don't recall any real talk about what we were going to do as far as gear back up to try it. Or get it reindicted, although I think everyone really kind of anticipated that it would be. And I'm not sure what happened.
Mike lost the election. Donna won.
She was elected, and I went into private practice.
Donna ended up serving the next 16 years as Henderson County District Attorney. We couldn't convince Donna to speak with us. To this day, Mike doesn't know why she never brought the evidence against Jerry Mack Watkins back before a grand jury.
It was certainly a tragedy that the case had to be dismissed for reasons that really were outside of the evidence in the case itself. It was related more to unrelated circumstances involving E-Ray and that whole situation. I think it would have been a difficult case to win with the lawyers they had on the other side, who are very skilled, very good lawyers. But I think it would have been the right thing to do to have tried it and to have put that evidence in front of a jury. I think a jury would have had some real questions about Watkins' behavior. Now, would they have convicted him or not based on that evidence? I don't know. Being involved in it myself, did I think he did it? Absolutely. I didn't have any questions in my mind that he did it, and unfortunately got away with it.
The enormity of E. Ray Andrews' crimes and the effects they have had on others is greater than one man's downfall, far greater than the summary of his thefts, his chiseling, scams, hot checks, money laundering, his conspiracy to defraud, his alleged sexual predation, and his betrayals of public trust. It is far sharper than the skill and gamesmanship of the attorneys on either side of the Watkins case, which ultimately had little to do with its outcome. It is broader even than the scope of corruption it exposed and the judicial system it besmirched, a taint not just confined to one case, but on all the cases that had come under Andrews' auspices. The cost of E. Ray Andrews' crimes was literally the price of justice. Whichever way that justice might have fallen, towards sentencing or exoneration, the accused was now going to have to live in the fog of ambiguity. The final decision would remain unresolved. He was exiled to limbo, neither guilty nor innocent, but continuing to be under investigation. It was a price that has yet to be paid.
Jerry Mack Watkins was a free man. 6 months after his indictment was dropped, he faced a new threat. His former mother-in-law and sister-in-law sued him on behalf of his and Shelley's 2 daughters for the wrongful death of his wife, Shelley Watkins. Shelley's mom and sister's lawsuit accused Jerry Mack of repeatedly striking Shelley on the head, causing her death, and of disposing her body in the Trinity River.
I would have loved to have had the girls, especially if he was behind bars. That was my thought process.
This is Shelley's sister, Sandy Cripps.
And then when everything fell apart and, Jerry got to walk and the DA went to prison, kind of burst a lot of bubbles.
Realizing that she wouldn't be able to gain custody of her nieces, given that Jerry Mack hadn't been convicted of a crime, Sandy pushed for Jerry Mack to establish a trust for his daughters.
That was the most I could do. We did have a mediation, and we did not see Jerry because he was in one room and we were in another. It was pretty brutal. The attorney for Jerry was really rude. And of course, he wanted to attack me a lot because I was the one that was stirring the pot. I remember that attorney looking at me like I was some sort of an idiot.
Jerry Mack agreed to establish the trust for his daughters, but Sandy says he wanted to name his brother Ronnie as an overseer of the trust. That struck Sandy as a huge conflict of interest.
I said, absolutely not. Ronnie cannot have anything to do with that trust.
Sandy and her mom, Dusty, ended up dropping the lawsuit and settling out of court.
And it was the tiniest bit of closure, if you could even call it that. My mom got a monthly annuity of like $1,000 a month. So if you look at it like a win, that's as close as we ever got.
Really? That was all? Just $1,000 a month for your mom?
Yep.
And you didn't?
And I did set up a trust fund for the girls in case down the road they ever wanted to get the hell out if they felt like, things ever came to fruition.
Sandy doesn't remember how much money was placed in the trust. There's no public documentation.
And I will tell you also that I did hate the mediation with my mom. I hated it. But I felt like it was the only ounce that we could get of somewhat of a admission. Because that's all that, let's get this on the road here. We're going to do this. And I hated it.
One of the reasons why we didn't stop,
Sandy's husband, Gary, comes to the phone.
and why we proceeded with the wrongful death settlement and all of that, was because the original indictment was thrown out. And had we progressed and got a settlement and had some admission of guilt, then maybe they would re-indict.
Right.
And that's part of our motivation.
Which, because of the way he was let off, there's no statute of limitations on this. You know that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, because he wasn't found not guilty. It's still open, but good God, do you think I ever thought 30 years later I'd be talking like this? It's ridiculous.
But I've looked at the case files of both the criminal and the civil case, and when y'all settled, the only document was that you're dropping the suit. There's no any kind of admission of guilt or culpability.
That's what was on there, is that we dropped the suit.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, there's nowhere does it say
God.
that he's in any way responsible.
You hear that?
And we didn't drop the suit. We settled for the kids. Got a settlement.
But the documentation on it says we dropped the suit.
Yeah, and it doesn't even say that you settled.
God, I'm just trying to breathe for a minute here. I just feel like there are a lot of things that slipped through my fingers that I just wasn't knowledgeable enough about. And that's probably why he's lived his lovely 30-year life.
Later, Sandy opened up more to Carol.
The only way I could really look at that, because I always feel like it was kind of blood money in a way, but I do understand a couple of things. For us, or for me at least, it was a little bit of they settled on it. So it kind of gave me a little tiny piece of he's guilty. They didn't really fight as much. And I just always thought that was about the closest I was ever going to get to being appeased with that. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely.
It's all I had to go on.
In June 1995, Sandy visited Corsicana. She called Jerry Mack's mom, Norma, and asked to see her nieces, Shelley's daughters, Ashley and Lane.
She was very, very nice, and she said yes, of course. So we drove out to Corsicana. We went to her house. She had the girls. And, we stayed for a while and played. Ashley was totally glued onto my lap.
Oh.
And then we followed her out to the cemetery to see Shelley's grave. And Norma was very, very nice. Very nice. I will always appreciate her for that part. The whole trip was terrible, but to be able to see the girls was huge. And I will never forget as we got in our cars and she was ahead of us because we were following her. And Ashley had her head out the back, looking out the rear window. And she was just waving and watching us as they pulled away. It was so rough. It was so rough. I just felt like, I just didn't want to leave her.
Was that the last time you saw the girl?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
1995.
oh my gosh.
Shelley's family's grief, compounded by the loss of any contact at all with Shelley's two little daughters, would continue to the present day and affect and shape the lives of Shelley's two nieces throughout their childhood and as they grew into adulthood. For Shelley's kin, that devastation has never stopped, never gone away.
My dad just for quite a while, he just could not wrap his head around the fact that anybody would do that to Shelley. I mean, it was terrible. And then, finally, he came to terms with it, came to my side on it. And, but then after that, he just drank himself to death. So it was really rough. He was another casualty of Shelley's death.
You first heard Dr. Courtney Cripps in Episode 1 of The Unforgotten, when she described how, as a 6-year-old just starting first grade, she walked in on her mother answering the phone and being told about Shelley's body having been found. She told us how that instant has remained seared on her brain ever since.
I do not envy my cousins in any way. I feel absolutely terrible for them, even though outwardly it doesn't seem as if this event has been all that earth-shattering. Life just took a turn and went on, it seems. With that being said, they don't know who their mom was, and that is something that I, thank God, cannot comprehend. I think every part of my being and who I am as a person is entirely related to this event. I think at 6 years old, I had a brand new little sister. My mom, with this being not only her sister, but her best friend, was absolutely devastated and, for lack of a better word, somewhat incapacitated by this, as I would be if it were my sister. I really am not exaggerating when I say that this has been a part of our everyday life for as long as I can remember.
This sounds like it ambushed your childhood, essentially.
Completely. It wasn't like this thing that we could turn on and off where, okay, now we're going to talk about it, now we won't. If it was a bad day for mom or for my grandmother, my nanny, and they were talking about this, well, we were privy to it. We were there, we were present, we heard all the details. Not many 6-year-olds are aware of the gruesome and gory details of murder. There's not a day we don't talk about it, or, strangely, that we don't talk about Ashley and Lane. And we don't even know them, And, every Christmas, Mom would get a box from Corsicana that had a professional photograph in it. That was the highlight of Christmas, was opening that box to get this new photo. And our house was just littered with photos of these two girls who were almost identical in age to my sister and I, but not my sister and I. And so friends come over and they're like, what are the photos of all these girls that are not you and your sister in this house? And it was like 2 extra places at the table for Ashley and Lane if they ever decided that they wanted to be there. It was almost like we lived with them, but they have no idea who we are. We've always talked about Ashley and Lane as if they're the closest family we've ever known, and I know nothing about them. In the moments that I've pursued it, it was never reciprocated in any way.
Shelley's daughters did not respond to our requests to speak with them.
The thing is justice for my aunt means complete dismantling of their world. And I don't want that for them. I really don't. I can't imagine, the problem is that there's so much collateral damage here But the collateral damage isn't justice coming to light. The collateral damage was done when the act was done. I can't imagine what that is going to feel like if they ever even accept it and believe it. They might not. That's the other side of things.
But on the other hand, if you look at it in terms of some sort of psychological symmetry, it is as if you and your sister, and of course your mother and your father, Shelley's family, has borne the burden not only for yourselves, but for Ashley and Lane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Throughout her childhood, Courtney Cripps has told me she woke every morning to a photo over her bed. It was of her Aunt Shelley sitting in a boat, smiling, happy and radiant, wearing a red sweater, skimming along on the top of the water rather than weighted beneath it. The long blonde hair that had caught the three fishermen's eyes floating from one end of the black plastic package on the Trinity River's surface, now blowing free in the wind.
Thank you for listening to The Unforgotten. Get updates, photos, case files, and more when you sign up for our newsletter at unforgottenpod.com. The Unforgotten is a free-range production. Season 1, The Labor Day Ghost, is created, written, and hosted by Carol Dawson and me, Wes Ferguson. I'm the executive producer here at Free Range. Audio recording, editing, and mixing by Austin Sisler at Eastside Studios in Austin, Texas. Scored by Austin Sisler and Jamie Cummins. Our theme song, Ghost, is written and performed by Corsicana's own Will Mechatron Jones. If you support our efforts to shine a new light on Shelley Watkins' cold case, please like, subscribe, give us a review, and tell your friends. Thanks again, and see you soon.